Fellas, the active radar homing missiles are officially among us. They are in the game now on the dev server. Granted, it is only a test event similar to severe damage. It's not actually a part of the official server where it's in the modifications of the vehicle and all that. You have to essentially pick the correct rank vehicle in that specific nation and queue into the event within the events and tournaments tab, and it will automatically spawn you the plane with the corresponding loadouts for active radar homing. Here's the list of vehicles right now on the dev server that you can try out. You do have to have that specific nation and a certain rank vehicle to be able to play. You don't necessarily have to have that exact vehicle, however. Before we get started with my overall thoughts on these active radar homing missiles, I do have two things. One, I have a Discord. I would really appreciate if you guys hopped on in there, get it a little bit more lively, make some friends, find some squad mates, who knows. And two, the F-20 is coming out. I assume a lot of you are probably going to be buying that thing. I would really appreciate if you use my link in the description down below. Get yourself 3% off, and it helps me out as well. I still don't have a decal yet. It is finished. I have submitted it to Gaijin. It is out of my hands at this point, but no, you will not be getting my decal just yet if you use my link. Nonetheless, if you want to anyways, there it is, and I'd appreciate it. So the active radar homing is really exciting and fun while simultaneously being extremely disappointing and not fun. What do I mean by that? Well, it is fun and exciting in the sense that they're finally here. The ER meta is officially going to be over. The problem, however, is that this isn't very much fun at all. It's 16 versus 16 still, and that's exactly what we were expecting when it comes to active radar homing missiles. If they did not decrease the player count, which they have not done that on the live server, and they haven't done it on the dev server, and they have not done it in this dev server test event, well, active radar homing is just not going to be fun, and that's exactly what my experience has been so far. I'm not going to be comparing any of the missiles necessarily right now because certainly they're going to be changed before they come to the official game. I am promising you right now these are not the final stats of the missiles. They are not going to be finished like this, and so I wouldn't really pay attention to any comparisons at the moment. Sure, it's fun if you want to look into it, go ahead, but do keep in mind that I can almost guarantee you that the missiles are not going to be coming to the game in their current state. That being said, I did play every single one of the missiles at least a game or two just to show you guys how they look, what they perform like, so you can just get a general idea. Some of the missiles are not modeled visually right now, so if they don't have their own unique visual model at the moment, they just have an AMRAAM placeholder visual model. So keep that in mind. That is the case with, for example, the MICA-EM, and yes, the MICA is in the game. Again, I'm not going to be going over the individual stats, what missile I think is the best, stuff like that, because they're most certainly going to be changed before they make it to the live server, and I'll just have to remake that video or that opinion, whatever it may be, and I don't feel like doing that, so we're just going to wait until they're a little bit closer to launch. That being said, I can talk about active radar homing as a whole in my experience with it. For one, well, if you enjoy the typical LARPing style BVR where you want to be at high altitude, you want to go back and forth between being offensive and defensive, turning cold, staying at the minimum abort range and not going within that, then this isn't going to be very fun for you at all. That is not the meta. Certainly you can do it, but it is definitely off meta. I did give it a fair shot. I tried several games where I wanted to stay at high altitude, stay at BVR ranges, and just kind of go offensive and defensive. I actually had a pretty good fight with this J8F here up here at altitude in this very match. The problem is that people at low altitude are going to eat you up, and there's nothing you're going to be able to do about it. I did play just as many matches trying to climb out to altitude to fight as I did hugging the deck, and that's why I can tell you with certainty right now deck hugging is still absolutely the meta. Most of the missiles are still strongly affected by multipathing, which is flying low to the ground, and they're not going to hit you, just like the SARS. But unlike the SARS, these missiles can be fired in TWS, and you're not going to be getting an RWR launch warning when somebody is shooting at you. It's only when it's pretty much too late for you to actually react and defend against them will you get the warning, and not only that, they are very difficult to chaff compared to the SARS. At least the couple that I have had to defend against and tried to do a 90-degree chaff, it was a lot harder. It's similar to like an ER rather than a Sparrow. A Sparrow is very easy. You turn 90 degrees, you drop a couple of chaff. The ER is much more difficult. You kind of have to spam chaff, you have to have that notch almost perfectly, and that's a lot like how it felt with the active radar homing missiles. So I don't really recommend being here at altitude. If you are going to be at altitude and you do get chance to react like I do to this MICA, sure, you can kinetically defeat the missile missile, as you're going to watch me do. I'm going to turn cold, I'm going to bleed it of its energy, all that good stuff, and you can do that in War Thunder, yes, and that's really cool. But again, you're not going to have RWR, especially so if they're coming from underneath you and they've got your blind spot. You're not going to have time to react, and you're just going to get simply eaten up and picked off by people that are hugging the deck. Even if you do see them on the deck, you can't fight back because they're simply going to just multi-path your missile into the ground, and theirs is going to hit you. Now, for all my LARPers out there that are upset by this and think that I just don't know what I'm talking about, trust me, I really want active radar homing combat to go exactly the way you're talking about. I want to be at high altitude. I want to hit 50-kilometer shots with my AMRAAMs. That will be a lot of fun, and I would enjoy that. It's just simply not possible right now in 16 versus 16. There's too many people, there's too many angles, there's too many directions. We need a player reduction for this many missiles being active in the air at one time. I think if we had an 8 versus 8 on some of these larger maps, that the combat would play out a lot more enjoyably. I think it'll be more team oriented instead of just spamming all of your missiles at the first target you see and let them go active through TWS, and that's pretty much what it is right now. I would also like to point out that yes, technically these missiles have some extremely far launch ranges, but in reality they're really not going to be hitting the 50, 60 plus kilometer shots that you might expect, because they burn out very quickly, and if somebody is kinetically maneuvering against the missile to defend it from it, it's going to lose its energy very fast and not be able to get any of that energy back. You can see in some of these missile tracking cameras that I'm doing here, the AMRAAMs just kind of float in the air, and they kind of just rely on the target flying towards it and running into the missile, because it really does not have much energy at all by the time it actually gets down range in these BVR situations. And I say AMRAAM, but that's pretty much all of the missiles right now. They have very short burn times, they accelerate really quickly, and they can technically go pretty far range. But the thing is, the reason why it says they can go far range is because they just don't fall out of the sky after a certain amount of time, like you would expect something like a Sparrow or an ER, maybe one of the heavier missiles, or they might self-destruct, whatever it may be. These things float in the air for a very long time, and they just let the target continue to fly towards them, and they will eventually just let the target run into it and blow it up. The problem is, again, as I said, if somebody's actually defending against it, it does not have the energy to make course corrections at far range whatsoever. This was actually pretty much my first game playing with these active radar homing missiles, so I did try the LARPing strategy of, high altitude BVR, and of course, what do you know, a low altitude active radar homing AMRAAM hits me, and I don't have time to defend against it. And that's pretty much been the story of this whole gameplay session for me. I do play the MICAs here, and I had a lot of fun with the MICAs. They are pretty cool. They have thrust vectoring, and it is modeled right now, so that's a little bit enjoyable. And overall, I don't know, something about these ones felt better than some of the other ones I played. That is to be expected, because MICAs on paper, if War Thunder models them somewhat accurately, they're going to be way better than everything else in the game, which is pretty funny. I've actually told some people that the MICA is just simply too advanced to be fighting against AMRAAM, so don't expect them for a long while. Well, Gaijin says the hell with that, we're going to add them anyways, so either two things are going to happen. They're going to add them in a relatively nerfed state and not really realistic in any sense, or they're going to just make them realistic and make everything suffer, similar to what they did with the ER. Here's another example. Of course, I'm low altitude, so the guy's missile just goes straight into the ground. Unfortunately, mine doesn't hit, and I didn't look at him long enough to see why it didn't hit. I don't know if it maybe just lost him with its radar, or maybe kinetically evaded against it. I'm not sure, but either way, we don't kill each other here, and we end up in an interesting little dogfight. Really, I should have just put the MICAs to the test with the thrust vectoring and see if it hits them in this situation, but I didn't. I tried to go for gun kills, and it is boring compared to what you probably wanted to see out of this fight, but it also is kind of fun putting the Mirage 2000 to the test in a 1v1 gun style fight with an F-16C here. I think he probably should be able to beat me if he plays his cards right. However, it's a lot easier for me to win as the Mirage 2000 because I can kind of just sit inside his turn circle all day long, and also if a Mirage is starting on your 6, it's going to be pretty difficult for that to change. I think he pretty much realizes this. He's not really gaining any ground against me, and so he's going to try to extend away. Unfortunately though, I do have some radar missiles still, and as he extends away, I'm going to launch a MICA, rear aspect, and he does seem pretty low to the ground, except he pulls up last second for some reason, and the MICA finds him. If he'd have stayed low to the ground right there, I probably wouldn't have hit him, and in classic Seekerhead fashion, I throw my plane into the tree. I wanted to leave that in there so you guys saw that and laugh at me a little bit, because that does happen relatively frequently. My biggest enemy in War Thunder probably is the ground or the trees. For Israel, you get the Derby missiles. I don't know if that's how it's pronounced in Hebrew or whatever Israelis speak. I think it's Hebrew. I'm not sure. But either way, I'm going to call them the Derbies, and they are pretty fun. Well, really, all of these missiles are fun to use. They're just not fun in the current RRB game mode of 16 versus 16. Again, I play my hand at starting with some altitude, trying to do some real BVR, some real Air Force doctrine BVR. And of course, we're going to use TWS for that. For those of you who don't know, if you're using TWS with an active radar homing missile, it's actually not going to give the target any RWR until the missile itself turns its own radar on in the seeker at its terminal stage of flight. A very common problem I've had with this game mode, however, and you just saw it, is after I launch a missile, about 5 seconds later, the target that I fired at just dies from a teammate. And since you can't really see teammate missiles, you don't see any markers or anything like that, you really don't know what missile is out on who, and you don't know if your teammate's going to blow it up in a couple of seconds. I do want to touch on this high altitude BVR fighting strategy again, because I just know I'm going to get a lot of comments of people saying, you're doing it wrong, that's not how you do proper BVR. Well, look, I am hanging back, and that's why I'm alive right now. I didn't go in first. I am baiting my teammates just like you're supposed to do in 16 vs 16, and yes, it worked out for me. Somewhat worked out for me because I still don't have any kills, but I'm not dead yet, which is better than what you would expect with normally doing this if you were to go in first. The problem is I have no impact on my team right now. I am not having any say in who wins or who loses the match. I am simply trying to sling radar missiles from afar. They're probably not going to hit the target anyways, or maybe the teammates are going to kill him first, and that's all I'm doing. Sure, I'm not dead, but I mean, sure, like I'm not doing anything useful. And that's something you got to try to avoid. This is like what you see with F-14 Tomcat players, where they take 6 Phoenixes at the start of a match, take off from their airfield, climb up to altitude, shoot all 6 Phoenixes off from 60 kilometers, and swear by the fact that they get 2 to 3 kills a game with their Phoenixes. They have 3 KBs in their F-14 just from slinging AIM-54 Phoenixes at 60 kilometers. That's simply not true, because it's pretty much impossible. You'd be basically the best player in War Thunder if you were getting 3 kills per battle. And the reality is, they're really not helping their team very much when they go back to the airfield and have to rearm, because by the time they take off again, the game's pretty much over, and they're either cleaning up the win or they're sucking up the loss with the rest of their team. It would be pretty useful for me to actually hold the radar locks for some of these shots instead of unlocking when the missile's a certain range from the target. I do realize that, but I am putting these to the test. I'm putting the active radar homing seekers to the test and see how well they acquire the targets on their own. So I'm going to go ahead and just let that thing guide in and then switch targets. So let's check on it here real quick, see if it's making it, and it is. It's actually tracking that MiG-29 pretty well. The problem is that MiG-29's hauling ass, and my AMRAAM is just about out of energy, so it's not actually going to hit him. Shoot a closer range derby and unlock immediately to see if it tracks. It does, we get the kill, and it is actually pretty cool and pretty fun to see that in War Thunder. The problem is 16 vs 16, not the missiles. So get on the dev server, test it yourself, let me know what you think in the comments. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see ya.